Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today is a solo episode, and I want to go over the three biggest body recomp mistakes I see made. But before I dive into that, just want to go over a few ways you can help support the podcast. So first, if you're sick of just focusing on weight loss and instead want a body recomp, then my one-on-one online coaching program is for you. I help you lose body fat and build muscle with my body recomp training, nutrition, and lifestyle methods. We look at things like your lifestyle and biofeedback to individualize your training and nutrition program to you and your specific needs. There's also at least 1 to 2 bottlenecks outside of the training and nutrition protocol that we figure out that are keeping you from seeing the results that you want to see. So if you're interested in this, you can reach out to me on Instagram or fill out the link in the show notes and we can talk about this in more detail. If you aren't interested in full coaching, I do one-on-one consultations where we troubleshoot any issues you have and or map out a game plan for the next couple months or whatever it may look like. If you want to learn more about body recomp, I have my 75-minute masterclass on body recomp, what it is, how to do that. And you can find the link to that in the show notes, and listening to today will obviously be helpful for that. Next, you can follow me on Instagram, Jeff, HOEHN_. That's where I'm most active on social media. So if you have any questions or want to reach out, that would be the place to find me. And then lastly, if you found this podcast to be helpful in any way, if you could leave a rating and review, and that will help more people find this podcast. With that out of the way, I want to dive into today's topic. So like I started this off, are you not ever satisfied with your look, even though you work out consistently, you diet, you focusing on making better choices? If you feel like this is you, then chances are you're probably making at least one of these three mistakes, right? So again, you're trying to just look better. You want to be leaner, you want to be toner, whatever it may be. But again, no matter what you do, it's just, hey, I'm training hard. I'm eating like I feel like I'm supposed to. I'm putting in the work, but for whatever reason, I'm just not seeing the change in my body like I want. If so, like I said, you're probably making at least one of these three mistakes. And so that look you want is going to require less body fat and more muscle. Okay. So I commonly get asked, hey, I want to look better. Do I need to build more muscle or do I need to lose more body fat? And honestly, it's in most cases, it's a combination of both. Like you would know if you were too lean, if you just need it to build muscle, right? Like most people need to do a combination of it, right? Like you need to build more muscle, and that's going to help you just have a toner look at any given body weight. But at the same time, you also need to probably drop some body fat, and that's going to show off that muscle a little bit more. If you just do one or the other, I feel like you're going to be missing out at least a little bit on overall look. So this is where I implement the phrase a body recomp, right? And so I've talked about this many times. We have a couple different scenarios. We have short-term body recomp, and we have a long-term body recomp. Short-term is like the simultaneous fat loss and muscle gain. And then we have long-term body recomp, which is over time, you're dropping body fat and building muscle. And this is usually going to require phases of you focusing on one or the other. A lot of people think that they can't do both at the same time, but a lot of people aren't doing these things that I'm about to talk about. And until you get these nailed down, you can't really say that, right? Just for example, recently clients like, hey, I'm not happy with my look. I feel like I need to increase my calories, but then I dove into their training a little bit more. They're not weight training. And so it's okay. Hey, that's the big thing that you need to do. Like at least get that in. Is that going to solve all your problems? No, but it's at least going to help. Part of the reason you're probably not happy with your body composition is you haven't been focused on training, adding lean body mass and whatnot. And that's just maybe your weight's not necessarily going up a ton. Maybe it is going up a lot, but if you're not weight training in that process, it's like that weight you're gaining, or again, if it's staying around the same, it's going to start to shift more towards body fat versus muscles. Again, this is why we want to make sure that we do both over time. And so what I want to go over is these are the three biggest body recomp mistakes people make when it comes to making that change, right? Let's dive into them. So first, I have thinking you don't need to focus on maintaining or building muscle. This is the first thing that I feel like people, it's always, oh, I'm just going to drop this weight first and then I'll focus on adding muscle. No, you need to do both at the same time. Okay. You probably do need to lose body fat, but you also need muscle and you need to maintain that muscle. Just when you get it, like when people get into this, it's, oh, I'm just going to focus on weight loss first. That's all I'm going to do. It's going to be all about just getting weight off. And then what happens? They get that weight off. They're still not happy. They think they need to lose more weight. And they just go down this rabbit hole of just continuing to try to find ways to drop more weight. And then eventually they get to the point where it's like, this sucks. And maybe they've lost muscle in the process and boom, they're back to where they started, if not worse. So with this thought process, people end up hurting their look by chasing lower body weights at all costs. And then you end up in this endless cycle of you're dropping weight, maybe losing some lean body mass in the process because you're not focused on it. Then you bounce back, you add body fat. And so each time you go back up, it's like your weight, you look worse each time because you drop some body fat. So we have to be careful with this. At the very least, you need to do things that are going to maintain your lean body mass, which the rest of these things will go into that. So this is the first big mistake I see people make, is even if you do have a lot of body weight to lose, you still need to focus a little bit on at the very least maintaining, but you probably have a lot of room to actually add muscle, right? So I made this post a while back, 2 common thoughts that hurt people's ability to improve their look and health, right? So one, it's thinking you have more muscle than you actually do. So again, it's, oh, hey, I don't need to focus on a body recomp. I need to just lose body fat because I already have too much muscle, and it's okay. You probably don't. You just are getting that confused with just having a little bit more body fat, and you think that adding muscle is going to make you look even bigger, but that's not the case, right? If anything, it's going to help you lose body fat, and it's going to help you have a better look as you at any given body weight, right? So that's the first one, is and why people generally are like, oh, I need to just focus on dropping weight first. They think they have more muscle than they actually do, which they don't, especially if they haven't been weight training. Just because you go to the gym every couple months or you just lift a little bit and whatnot, that doesn't mean that you have a ton of muscle. And this leads me to my next one, is thinking that you can just, like, people just thinking that they can add pounds of muscle by just lifting weights. Like, it doesn't happen that way. There's people that literally, again, if you have good genetics, you can get away with a lot less. But if you're still not applying proper weight lifting protocols to build muscle, it's like it's not just going to happen, right? You have to go out of your way. And so once you purposely trying to maintain it or build more, it's not just going to magically stay there. So these are 2 big things I see that go into this, right? First, people think they have more muscle than they actually do. So it's, oh, hey, I can really put this on the lower on the priority list. I don't have to worry about maintaining or building muscle. I just need to do a ton of cardio, and I just need to eat very little amount and just drop weight. Wrong. You still need to make sure you get protein in. You still need to make sure you're weight training during this process, right? You're not going to bulk up or anything like that. And then 2, again, like people just commonly think that adding muscle is this easy process that just happens, right? Oh, I'm touching weight, so I'm just going to build all this muscle. And so again, because of these thoughts, you put all your efforts on scale weight loss and losing body fat to improve your health and look, and you don't prioritize building and maintaining muscle. And like I've said multiple times in this podcast, like, in most situations, people do need to drop weight and body fat. But the problem arises when there's too much focus on the weight loss, fat loss side of things, and no focus on building or maintaining muscle because of those initial thoughts. So just a few things that can happen with these thought processes. Thinking you have more muscle than you actually do. First, if you haven't pushed muscle growth before, and again, we're talking 18 weeks plus with methods that actually drive muscle growth, then you have less than you think. So 2 things happen here. One, I don't need to focus on building muscle or maintaining it because I already have enough. I need to just lose weight. So everything you do is to see the scale weight go down, and this increases the risk for muscle loss during weight loss, depending on your methods, right? And what happens here is you're going to feel hungrier, you're going to feel weaker, you're going to have less energy, and you need to lose more weight to look toned, right? Like I talked about earlier. And then the other kind of big issue with this too is you never spend time trying to add more muscle. And basically what's going to happen here is you're going to end up having a cap on your overall look. So if you only focus on losing body fat, your overall look will cap out at some point. You need to spend some time adding muscle if you want to continue you're improving your look over time. Again, this is, yes, you need to drop some body fat and continue to do that over time, but you also need to make sure that you add some lean body mass. So thought 2, thinking you will just add pounds of muscle easily by just lifting weights, right? So the issue with this is muscle is not easy to come by. You need to put in consistent and directed work towards building muscle in the gym and out of the gym to add more muscle. It doesn't just happen. Oh, hey, I'm going to go lift weights tomorrow, just randomly do things. Again, you might build a little bit of muscle doing that, but after the first little bit of gains there, it's just going to slow down. Your body's not just going to keep adding muscle on accident. So with the thought process, people half-ass their lifting workouts or overly focus on like fat burning type workouts and end up never adding more muscle, right? Moral of the story here is if you want to look and be healthier and you want to do this body recomp and look better, you need to prioritize muscle maintenance and gain, plain and simple, right? Like it doesn't have to just focus on weight loss, right? So don't forget, you have less muscle than you think, especially if you haven't specifically tried to gain more muscle. 2, you aren't going to put on pounds of muscle by just touching weights for 12 weeks, right? So that's the first one there that I wanted to go over. You do need to make sure you focus on that at least a little bit, right? If you don't, this body recomp is probably not going to happen and you're probably not going to be happy with your look. Just too many people look over that muscle building style or adding muscle. They wait to do that. And then again, it just leads to continually just trying to lose more weight. So number 2, and we talked about this throughout this last one, but training methods are suboptimal for building muscle. Okay. So this is the second big thing, the second mistake that people make here with a body recomp is, again, maybe you know muscle is important. Like you're like, okay, Jeff, I know I need to add muscle, and you do lift weights. Again, in your head, hey, I do want to build muscle, but how you go about muscle growth is suboptimal. You've never had a period of time where like the training has been optimal for muscle growth, right? And again, if you go from not lifting weights to lifting weights, you are going to see some progress and you are going to build some muscle, but eventually that's going to slow down, and you have to be a little bit more specific with what you do if you want to continue to add more muscle. So again, maybe it's you just do too much cardio and not enough muscle building training. So again, you're trying to look better. So you're like, hey, I need to drop weight. So I just need to do a ton of cardio, just maybe weight train 1 or 2 times a week, right? Probably not what we want to do there. You still want to make sure that that's fine if you want to do cardio and combine it. Like I'm all for that. I think that's a very smart idea. But too much cardio but then again, with not enough weight training, where it's just like, hey, you're 1 to 2 times a week. You're not really focused on anything in your weight training sessions. You're just doing it because you feel like you need to. And again, you go back to this, oh, hey, if I just touch weights, I'm going to build muscle, but we know it's a little bit tougher. So again, maybe it's dialing back that cardio a little bit and shifting a little bit more of your time towards weight training, right? 2, maybe it's just poor programming, right? Like you're just the exercises you're doing aren't great. Again, the cardio and the muscle building training, it's not programmed effectively, right? Like they're not intertwined. It's just like a ton of high intensity cardio combined with weight training, and then you end up like just being under recovered, right? So poor programming from that aspect. Again, maybe it's just like there's a wide range of rep ranges, but maybe you're just focused on one particular rep range, like all your trainings in like the 15 to 20 rep range, right? So again, poor programming is another big thing here that could be improved. And I'll talk about what good muscle building programming looks like for a body recomp. And then 3, you're just focused on the wrong things, right? So you're just trying to do the most. You're just always trying to just get a burn during your training. You're just trying to get your heart rate up. You're always just trying to push yourself. You feel like you should just be obliterated after every single workout, right? So it's like you're training hard, your thoughts are there, and you know you need to push yourself, but you take it too far and you just always try to beat your body up and just feel super just worn out, and like you're just chasing that feeling of feeling exhausted all the time with training, right? Hey, the more I do, the higher my heart rate is, the better it is. But again, that's not going to get any sort of like specific adaptation there, right? It's not going to be great for building muscle, probably not great from an endurance standpoint. So again, we just need to make sure our training and everything is aligned with the adaptation that we're trying to get, right? This is a common thing that I see with people and this goes back to the training methods being suboptimal, is you get a lot of people that they work out, they're into fitness, they know they need to work out, but then you get to this point to where that's good, you're consistent with it, but then to take that kind of next leap after a while to continue to see gains, things do need to be a little bit more specific to what you're trying to do versus like just doing more and just doing things because just going to the gym. That's good. That's important. But sometimes initially just getting to the gym, that's important, staying consistent, but then eventually you're going to have to get things a little bit more dialed in if you want to continue seeing results. So this is where just being a little bit more efficient with what we're doing can be super helpful. So even if you've been training for a while, I find that there's still a good amount to work on here for most people, right? And we'll talk about the training, what that needs to look like, but this could also be a problem, right? You need to build muscle, but just how you do your training and everything is just a little suboptimal for building muscle. So I want to go over what training needs to look like. So training, we want it to support muscle growth and maintenance, like we talked about. So what this looks like, you're probably going to lift 2 to 6 times a week. I think the sweet spot for most people is 3 to 4 times a week on that. So if you can train about 3 to 4 times a week, you're good to go. If you like weight training a little bit more, you could bump it up to 5 to 6. You just need to make sure recovery's in a good spot there on that. We want to hit each muscle group 2 times a week. This is a good base. It doesn't have to be like this for every single muscle group, but you want to try to hit each muscle group 2 times a week. You want to lift in the 5 to 20 rep range most of the time. Okay. So if you're looking at if it's like a lot in the 20 to 30, a lot in the 1 to 5 rep range, it's like you probably could get that a little bit closer. I find that 8 to 15 rep range is like the sweet spot there. Now we want to make sure that the target muscle is within 0 to 2 reps from fail most of the time. So what you don't want to happen is you don't want to be doing like an exercise, and the reason you stop is because you're trying to hit your quads, but either your glutes are the limiting factor, your core is the limiting factor, or your breathing is the limiting factor, right? You want your quads to be the reason you stop that set. You want that particular muscle group to be close to failure. Again, if that's not the case, if you're just trying to go to the gym and just get your heart rate up, again, your cardio system and that's going to be the limiting factor, not the muscle. And so you end up working hard, but you don't take the muscle close to failure like you need to for it to continue to grow. And we want to make sure we hit about 6 to 20 sets per week per muscle group. I feel like if you feel like you need to do more than that or less, if you feel like you need to do more than this, you need to look at like rest times. You need to look at, are you training the muscle close enough to failure? Are you picking the right exercises? But again, that 6 to 20 sets per week is a sweet spot there. Exercise selection is forgiving, but we do want to avoid too much variety in that with exercises that we choose, right? So you don't want to just change every single time you go in. If you do that, things are probably going to be suboptimal there, right? And then from there, it's like the rest of the time, you you do activities, things you enjoy to keep you active. We just want to avoid super long periods of time without sitting. And then look, you can do cardio as some of this stuff's come out lately from my podcast. Like I'm a big fan of zone 2 cardio. I think it's a solid thing to do. It just needs to be programmed properly, right? We just want to make sure that we're not burning the candle at both ends. And so again, we have zone 2 cardio. I suggest you listen to my episode from Monday. I think that was episode 323. I dive into zone 2 cardio a little bit and how to implement that. That's what we want training to look like, right? It's forgiving, but it's also somewhat specific. It just can't just be random. You can't just go in and lift weights and do what you want and expect to continue to progress. We do need it to be somewhat specific there on that. That's how training wants to look, how we want training to look like. Again, most people, their methods are suboptimal for building muscle. I'd say probably the most common is from like a specific, hey, they're lifting weights regularly. It's poor exercise selection and then not taking the target muscle close to failure, right? It ends up being like they stop their set because they hit a rep that's on the program that they need to hit, or a certain rep range that they think, or it's because they're just like bored from the sets. Okay, let's do the next set. I've been doing this over and over again. Let's just do the next thing. Or they just don't like that discomfort that they need to get to. So that's a big mistake I see people make with their muscle building training. You do want to make sure you take that target muscle close to failure there. You don't have to take it to failure every time, but fairly close, right? And then so number 3, the next big mistake people make is just low protein. Protein is needed to build and maintain muscle. It can also help with fat loss by increasing fullness, and it does give you a small uptick in your energy expenditure throughout the day. But most people fall well short when trying to change their body. Protein's tough to get. It's not the tastiest. Some people love protein, but a lot of people fall way too short regularly. They get some protein in each meal, or maybe they get a little bit of protein in a couple times a day, but then they end up falling very short of it. I know for me, if I'm not specifically trying to aim for a certain goal or paying attention to it, sometimes my protein can fall a little lower than what I would like it to be. So we want to try to aim for 0.8 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight per day. At the very least, aim for 1 to 2 palm-sized servings 3 to 4 times a day, and you should be good to go there if you don't want to like specifically track your macros. But this one's super important for body recomposition. We need to make sure that protein's in a good spot. So then that way, again, it can help you eat less by, again, protein is satiating, but it also helps with building muscle and maintaining muscle. And again, it's just the toughest macro to get in because I feel like it's expensive, but also it requires some prep work other than obviously like protein shakes don't, but it does require some prep. You can't just eat it you got to cook it and stuff like that. Make sure you get in plenty of protein. So those are the 3 big mistakes I see made with body recomp. If you do want more information on this, like I mentioned at the beginning, on body recomp, what it is, how to do it, I have my free 75-minute masterclass on body recomp. You can find the link to that in the show notes. But yeah, that's it for this episode. I hope this was helpful, and I will talk to you guys next time.